It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Samantha Cheetham, is SDI CEO and has been with the company for the past 17 years, mainly in sales and marketing. Samantha started as a sales rep for SDI in Australia, then became a regional manager for the company in California. Samantha returned to Australia in 1998 when she eventually became in charge of global sales and marketing. In 2016, she became the CEO. My first question I have to ask you, when you're in California, was it hard to go back to Melbourne, Australia, or were you tempted to just stay in California, or what were your thoughts there?
No, I loved California. It was fantastic. I mean, it's like a dream state. But I had to come back to reality. And believe it or not, Australia is quite similar to California anyway. We've got beautiful beaches. The language, the accent is probably the closest to Australia that we get. So it's actually quite similar. And San Francisco was a great city. And I was very fortunate to be there for a long time. But I did have to come back to reality. So,
remember Ruth Port from Port Laboratories? She was the first Dental Town fan, and she'd, going way back in the day, she'd invite me down about every 5 years to go to lecture in Auckland, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. And I did that 6-city deal over 10 days, probably every 5 years. I was lecturing in Melbourne, and you guys have the largest dental manufacturing company in all of Australia, New Zealand. And I called you guys up, and I said, I'm down here. And my gosh, you guys were so gracious. You took me to lunch, and I had a couple of boys with me, and we had so much fun. I could just tell that you guys just really good, down-to-earth people.
Thank you very much. Well, I certainly remember it, and we enjoyed the day with you and your team. And I believe one of our directors also went hiking with you or something like that in the mountains.
Yes.
I think, is that right?
Yeah.
Jeff Knight? Dr. Jeff Knight?
Yeah, Jeff Knight. I had climbed the tallest mountain in Africa, Kilimanjaro, and I was down there. I was telling Jeff, I said, I want to knock out another continent. Australia is a continent. Can we hike to the highest point? And Jeffrey Knight said, absolutely. That was so much fun.
Very good. Well, got to have fun. I mean, this is what work's all about, right? We spend so much time at work, we've got to have fun there. So,
you've seen a lot of changes. I mean, SDI weren't they the largest amalgam producer in the world?
Oh, no, absolutely not. We've been about number 3 or 4. There's, I think, Kerr or Dentsply would definitely be significantly larger than us in that. And we still manufacture amalgam. It represents 25% of our sales, but it's still getting less and less each year as we research and sell more of the other products such as composites and glass ionomers and tooth whitening.
Well, I probably, everybody in Australia was telling me it was the biggest one in the world, but it's definitely the biggest one in Australia, New Zealand, right?
Right, absolutely. We're the biggest. Well, we're pretty much the main dental manufacturer in Australia. There's a few small ones that just focus on single products and a few other lines, but we're definitely the one that is the largest. SDI has been in existence for 48 years. Started by my parents, and it's been growing for the last 48 years, focused originally on amalgam and then got into the composites and glass ionomers, adhesives and tooth whitening, and we're very passionate about those categories and really want to be world leaders in them.
I love about world travel, and I never realized this when I started lecturing, that I've lectured in 50 countries, and so you got this all the people are the same, all the problems are the same, but how they solve their problems slightly different, whether it's architecture, whether it's something as simple as a kitchen sink, a door, it's so amazing. But I've always looked out at the differences how dentistry is delivered, and it seems like Australia, New Zealand, and Japan was the first really to get into glass ionomer. You had Jeffrey Knight, a legend in glass ionomer. Why do you think glass ionomer is bigger in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan than in the United States?
That's a great question. In Australia and New Zealand, one of the companies that started glass ionomers really focused on it, and they've done a fantastic job selling the materials. The materials release a lot of fluoride and calcium and do a lot of good for the tooth. And perhaps the Australian and New Zealand, Japanese dentists all got onto that. The US market is, very much driven by the American companies who haven't been that strong in the glass ionomers and been very, very strong in the composites. And, as we know, composites are fantastic for teeth too. They look great in the teeth. But they pretty much are plastics that just sit there. And SDI has invested a lot into glass ionomers, and I think that's really helped the Australian market as well. To educate them. And, we're really working hard on educating the US and the Canadian markets on why, dentists should use glass ionomers in addition to composites. Not saying it's replacing composites at all. We love composites, but my teams over there are working very, very hard to sell our glass ionomers and show the dentist the advantages.
You really have some legends down there in the glass ionomer. You had Jeffrey Knight, who's your neighbor in Melbourne. Graham Milicic is a legend. And what was the guy's name in Adelaide that got the Colgate grant? Oh my gosh, what was his name? Do you remember him?
I remember the person, but I can't remember the name. I'm trying to think. I need Jeff here.
Yeah, he got like the largest grant ever to study fluoride and things like that. But just some legends down there. You still see Graham Milicic?
He's based in New Zealand, and I have not seen him for a long time. But he's very much in the industry, very influential dentist, and someone that my teams work with. I don't know to what extent, but he's very influential in the New Zealand and Australian markets. So,
it was he and no. It was he and no.
Oh, he and no, of course. Now he is based right now in UAE, I believe, and he's working in one of the universities. I think running one of the schools over there. But very much involved. And he, along with Jeff Knight, helped us get into the Revastar, the SDF, silver-diamine fluoride category.
Yeah,
he's been a great influence to SDI.
Yeah, he's right now Dean and Professor of Cariology and Restorative Dentistry at University of Sharjah. Do you know?
In Dubai, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, UAE. Yeah, United Arab Emirates. Yes. But
right.
the main thing I want to tell the Americans is that, it seems like the Americans have always tried to restore a tooth like a carpenter. They're building a building, and then that building always gets eaten by termites. And it seems like he and No and Graham Milicic and Jeffrey Knight and SDI has realized that, it's a biology problem. It's not an architectural problem. And when you had those amalgams, and amalgams were, half mercury and the other half silver, zinc, copper, tin. Every ingredient is antibacterial, and they just last like 38 years if you look at the research. And then we had this aesthetic health compromise, aesthetic revolution where everybody wanted tooth colored. And I'm sorry, they don't fight off bacteria. They don't last nearly as long. And if you don't like the silver filling, you got to have some bioactive ingredient. I mean, you're getting bombarded. They say there's 600 species of microorganisms living in your mouth. There's 4,000 from your mouth to your rectum. I mean, you got to fight those bugs because that's what's going to win in the end.
That's absolutely right. But and the amalgams, they really have done that. But the glass ionomers help do that, and then the Revastar, which is the SDF, the silver diamine fluoride, really also helps it. And we're very passionate about improving the way the mouth is, and very much focused on pioneering and driving the science of dentistry. There's so many opportunities for dentists to really improve what's happening, and SDI wants to help them get there.
Your website is SDI, and that stands for what?
It originally stood for Southern Dental Industries. Southern being where Australia's in the Southern Hemisphere, and that was how we used to. I mean, many people still refer to us as Southern Dental. It just became easier, SDI. And that's just the way. We probably changed the name about 20 years ago.
Did you steal that idea from Kentucky Fried Chicken when they went to KFC?
Absolutely not. It did not enter our mind.
It did not enter your mind. So in 48-year-old company, you've seen a lot of changes. Your website, just SDI, if you're American, you can think of just SDI. So SDI.com, then .au for Australia. But you just mentioned another product. You mentioned Rivastar, which the website is just Rivastar, RIVASTAR.com. Explain Rivastar, and again, where does that name come from?
So Rivastar, Riva is our glass ionomer brand, and Riva is really the product the name that really, has helped us get into the whole, really helping the tooth category. We've just decided to use that brand as the name. And Rivastar is clearly our star player. It's an incredible product. If you look up SDF on just the general Google, you can see what SDF does to the tooth. Rivastar is a biofilm and sensitivity eliminator, but because of the silver, the iodide, and the fluoride, they've got some other real benefits of it. It's indicated for a desensitizer, but I know there's a lot of other uses that the dentists are using it for. And it really, basically, Rivastar is like a Band-Aid for the tooth. It totally, instead of, it's like you as a parent, your child runs down the street and falls over. What do? We clean, and they've got blood and things on there. You clean up the area. You put a Band-Aid on it. This is basically what a dentist will be doing with Rivastar. Instead of cutting out the decay, when they see decay, the infected and the affected decay, they just clean up the site, leave the affected decay there, and put Rivastar over it. It's like a Band-Aid for the tooth. And then on top of that, to seal it all in, you can put the glass ionomers, the Rivas, the Riva Self-Cure is the best one to put on there. But it's totally like a Band-Aid for the tooth. And it hardens the decay that's still the affected decay. And it really is a pretty amazing thing. It increases the bond strength of the glass ionomer. It's totally very, very non-invasive. And I think this is the way life is going in the dental world, and we must be as non-invasive as possible. And it's a really, really exciting product. It's got antibacterial activity, and it clearly is a product that's should be in every dental office. It's actually a very powerful product, and if you look up, as I said, SDF in Google, it's not just SDI. It's been around. This SDF technology has been around for a long time. The thing is that SDI, meaning my company, has got the patent for SDF and working with potassium iodide. So we have step one, which is the SDF. Dentists paint it on the tooth, but they immediately paint on step two, which is the potassium iodide. And this is the real key to this product. One of the problems with SDF as a product is it can possibly turn the carious area black. And obviously for teeth, we don't want that. So if that possibility is there, paint on the second step, the potassium iodide, or we refer to it as the Ki, and that will more than likely turn it back to creamy white. And then you can place the restorative over it if you want, or just leave it as is. But it's a very, very effective product for non-invasive dentistry and really fixing up the problem instead of cutting out all the decay.
Well, the major pushback on silver diamine fluoride is turning the tooth colored black. They don't like that.
Exactly.
So does this mean you're going to get a really smart dentist to make an online CE course for Dentaltown to show this technique? I mean, they love. We put up 400 online CE courses on Dentaltown. They're coming up on 1 million views. because it's just so much easier to learn something on your iPad. Watching an hour instead of having to fly to a city, go to a dental convention, and sit in an uncomfortable chair all day. But that would be a great online CE course to show the difference between silver diamine fluoride treatment, turning a tooth black, and the way that you guys are doing it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great course. I actually thought you guys already had one on there. But would certainly happily support that one. I think it's really important everyone understands, because there's also SDI, silver diamine fluoride. There's a lot of information that it turns the tooth black. Well, SDI is the only company that can turn it back to the creamy white. And, it's a really, really, really important step, so you don't get any of the staining.
And you guys are really ahead of the curve on that. I mean, you guys were telling me that when I was having dinner with you 5 years ago.
Yes, and probably 5 years ago, we were trying to get the FDA approval. So we only got the FDA approval for our product in mid last year. I think it was about April 2018.
So, but people could just buy it on, have it shipped UPS. I mean, even if it doesn't have FDA approval, they could still buy it from there.
Oh, they could have, but right now you can get it through all the key dental distributors in the US.
Yeah, because I think it's so funny how dentists are always like, oh, well, it's not legal here. It's like, dude, have you heard of UPS, FedEx? I mean, I know people buying products all around the world. I mean, the transportation system. But anyway, enough of that. It sounds like you're very passionate. When you start talking about that, you could just see there was a glow on your face, and you really have a passion for this. So do the same with polarwhite.com.au. Polar as in polar bear, white.com.au. Talk about Polar White.
Yeah, Polar, Pola, not with the R on it.
Oh, Polar White. Wow.
That's right.
Wow, my brain never saw that. I always thought it was Polar White.
That's fine. So Polar is one of our star products. Polar is our tooth whitening category, and Polar is a fabulous brand. It's been so successful for the dentists. We have been selling, manufacturing tooth whitening products for, I think, about 20 years almost. We researched, I mean, many years ago when the whitening started to come in, we decided we wanted to get into that category because it's such a, a powerful cosmetic fix. It's also non-invasive. It's a very quick procedure, and everyone can do it. So our research and development teams got onto this right away, and pretty much we've ended up with very powerful tooth whitening products. We've got, it totally depends what the dentist wants to do, but we've got the full suite of in-office products where, you can get your whitening done in like half an hour, or the take-home procedures where the patients can, well, the dentist will make up trays and then the patients will take it home. But we're very, very passionate about tooth whitening. It's Polar is one of our key brands. We've got all the different percentages that dentists like, or whatever's right for the patient. But we're very, very keen to continue investing into the research and development of that category, because there's other new things coming along. We have the research team working on different ideas and anything to make it easier for the dentist to dispense or the patient to use. And it's a super, I mean, whitening is a fabulous cosmetic fix that you can every patient can do at home, or you can quickly go into the dental office and get it done.
Do you see more growth in patients whitening their teeth at home or in the dental office?
It just depends. I mean, the US market for us is very strong in the take-home. But then I could say, because SDI sells to over 100 countries, and I could say, okay, some South American markets, in-office is really, really popular. And it just depends on the market. But for the US, the take-home is very, very important. And also, we know through the pharmacies, the whitening is, pharmacies or online direct to patients, that's getting popular as well. So our goal is to make sure that the dentists have all the categories to ensure that the patients come to them, not that go to the pharmacy. And we've got very low percentage carbamide peroxide to very high percentage hydrogen peroxide. So it's really what the dentist wants to focus on. And but the take home for sure is definitely the most popular.
And I just also want to clarify that I don't do commercials. This is an interview with a friend for years, and she didn't pay me to come on the show. I begged her to come on the show, and I know that so many dentists have told me this. When I was little and we'd go on vacation, most people go to Disneyland, but my dad would stop at 2 or 3 different places that made something. We went and visited where they made Budweiser, Coors. My dad was going to buy a family station wagon one time. I forgot what kind it was. I think it was a Chevy station wagon, and we went. He only bought it because our family could go there and we could be pulled by a golf cart while our station wagon was being made. And it was just so cool. And then here I am following that tradition. When I was down in Australia with 3 of my boys, I called you guys up, and I just love it. And I think dentists, they have just a better connection with the company when they know the face, the name behind a company. I mean, would you rather think of SDI or Samantha Cheetham that you saw on Dentistry Uncensored? I'm going to go back to composites for a while, even though I'm pro amalgam, and I know that 32 years of doing this, all the women pick tooth colored. I mean, you're never going to explain the pros and cons of amalgam to composite. You're never ever. I haven't had one woman say, "Yeah, I'll take the one that lasts 38 years instead of the one that lasts a dozen years." And but men routinely will say, "Well, yeah, like when I'm doing an MOD filling on a 60-year-old man, I say, you do it with amalgam, you'll take this thing to heaven with you. If you do it with composite, we're probably going to be crowning this thing in the next 5 to 10 years. But I know that composites have taken over, and the more I talk about amalgam, the more they just think I'm old and senile. But composites have made a big change lately with these bulk fills, and you have the Aurora composite, and you have the Aurora bulk fill. What are your thoughts on Aurora composite, placing it direct versus just fill the whole thing up in one setting and do a bulk fill?
Look, I mean, we've got the Aura bulk fill, and it's been great entering that category because I think it's a great category for exactly those people that don't want to have the amalgams. And, I mean, there's nothing that can beat amalgam. It's metal. I mean, it's going to last forever. But the Aura bulk fill is a super alternative. Just drill, fill exactly the way you can do amalgam. In fact, you can do this Aura bulk fill in the same procedure or even less probably procedural time than amalgam. And the bulk fills get very, very high compressive strength. Not as high as the amalgam, of course, but, it's not bad. And as a woman, I think I absolutely agree with you. I want a composite in my mouth or a tooth-colored filling in my mouth. And I'm quite happy with that. And the most important thing is that you get the longevity in the composites. You are getting good longevity. Of course, not as long as the amalgams. But SDI, we've been investing a lot of research and development into our composite range and Aura, and we've also got a new one about to be released called Luna. Aura and the Luna ranges are 2 ranges that really fit those categories well. I think, anteriorly, posteriorly, the composites are very, very good products.
So on your names, on your composite, you have Glacier, your anterior posterior microhybrid. So that Glacier, I mean, that's where polar bears live. I'm still confused that it's not polar white. How did you get Pola and a Glacier? Why didn't you just go polar bear white?
I think that's a good name. We'll keep that in mind for another time. My mother has chosen a lot of the names, and it's we've got we just have been really quite successful in choosing our names. We like a bit of fun. I don't want it to be too technical, But Glacier is a great product. That's actually going to be replaced by this new product called Luna. And that will be launched in April, May, June. I can't remember exactly for the US when that will be launched, but the Glacier will be replaced by that product.
And I also want to tell you kids, the young kids, I'm 57, I'll be 57 in August. I got 5 grandkids. Your curing light, I know everybody wants tooth colored, but you don't want to find out that your curing light is not working after you're sitting there wondering why some of your fillings are getting sensitive. And I mean, the curing light is such the low-hanging fruit that could be right and increase your quality. And I love the fact that not only do you sell curing lights, but you sell an LED radiometer to make sure your curing light works. I mean, I've seen studies that where dental reps will go into an office and they'll just check the doctor's curing light. They'll just check them all, and they'll say 20% of the curing lights don't even work, and these dentists are still using them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, there's a few. There's a couple of companies using a specific. I think it's a radiometer, but it's very specific, and it's a great way for them to sell curing lights. It's something we don't agree with, and as long as the dentist, they've got their own radiometer that they know is a good radiometer, I think that's a very good example of, if they can test that, I don't know, once a month, once every couple of months, that it's working, it should be fine. Most important thing for dentists is to buy a good quality LED light. Don't buy the cheap ones. The ones that, are coming from the restorative companies like STI. STI has been one of the longest, investors into the research of LEDs. And as long as you have a very good quality one, you pay for quality, and it's really important to do that. Don't go for those cheap ones because they don't have the history, nor do they more than likely have the quality there. But a general radiometer just to check your curing light, I think is really important to have in the office.
Australia, by the way, my brother moved to Sydney full time. Did I tell you that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
no.
My brother, he grew up in Kansas. We're both all from Wichita, Kansas, and he lived in Kansas, and his company offered to transfer him. They needed someone in Sydney, and he was only in Sydney about an hour and a half before he realized he was never going back to America. And yeah, I told him, I said, you can't leave Kansas, go to Sydney, and come back to Kansas. It's a one-way street. I mean, that has got to be the greatest city in the world. I mean, you don't need a car, the transportation, there's no crime. It's just the most unbelievable cities in the world.
You know what? I'll tell you, STI is based in Melbourne. It's greater than Sydney. So
do you really think so?
Absolutely.
Oh my! I love both those. And by the way, Sydney and Melbourne, that covers over half of all the Australians, doesn't it? Don't half of all the people live in those two cities?
Yes, probably. I don't know exactly the latest statistics, but the other cities, Perth and Brisbane and Adelaide, are getting stronger, and of course there's Tasmania as well. But they're all getting stronger. But I think Melbourne's about to take over the population of Sydney in the next few years. Because of the population growth.
And Perth is unbelievable. I mean, you go to Sydney, Australia, Melbourne, that'd be like going to Florida and Washington, D.C. So Perth would be clear on the other side. It'd be like San Diego or something. It's, Australia and the United States are both 3.6 million square miles. It's a huge country. But Perth, man, that is just, wow, that is such a cool deal. Oh, I wanted to ask you about the bulk cure. When you're talking about the lights and you don't want to go cheap. Oh, and when you start having lights go bad and your composites aren't curing all the way, and then there's sensitivity. Well, when those patients come back, check filling, and they block 30 minutes in a room, your overhead meter's running, and you're all frustrated, and you don't know if you should redo the filling or all this stuff like that. Dentistry is a game you're not going to win on volume. I mean, if you want to get into low price volume, don't go into dentistry. Go into hamburgers and French fries and Coke and things like that. But I noticed on the bulk fill, when you talk about your bulk fill, you're also talking about how it was designed so it would be cured faster, easier, better.
Yes, the bulk fill is great. It's great. It starts off. The most important thing is you've got to feel confident as a dentist. You're curing the whole amount, and we are very knowing that it's really important to do that. So we have special. What happens is the opacity before it's curing, the opacity. While it's curing, the opacity becomes more translucent so they can get to deeper, and then post-curing, it comes back to the normal blending of the tooth color, the surrounding shades of the tooth. And so it does a change that really, during the curing process, that really does change the refractive index so that it just helps make it the curing. So you as a dentist, you see it goes a bit more translucent, then it comes back to normal. And it's just so important that, sensitivity is not a problem. No, we don't want dentists to have complaints from their patients for post-op sensitivity or anything like that. We also have another product, Riva Bond, which is like a glass ionomer adhesive that works really well with bulk fill, because it's a glass ionomer based adhesive, and that slightly expands because the composite's shrinking as it's curing, and not just SDIs, many composites are shrinking a little bit. They particularly bulk fill when it's done in a bulk amount, and a great product to go with it is the Riva Bond, because it's slightly expanding while the composite's slightly shrinking, and it fills all those voids, and there's less sensitivity. So that's a nice way. If you're doing a lot of bulk fills, the Riva Bond LC is a great product just to really help that in terms of the sensitivity, and you get excellent bond strength as well to the composite. And the tooth, of course.
So what % of all these products you're talking about are actually made in Melbourne, Australia?
All of these products are made in Australia. We do all the research and development at our facility here, which is just outside of Melbourne, CBD. And we've got a full R&D team that's researching and developing all the composites, the glass ionomers, the tooth whitening adhesives, etc. And they're really completely focused on developing new innovative products for our dentists. And then we've also got another team, the technology and innovation team, that works on the delivery systems, making sure that it's easy for the dentist to deliver these products very quickly into the mouth without the patient stressing too much. And our capsule systems are world-class, our syringes, etc., all very easy for dentists and dental staff to deliver the materials into the patient's tooth.
So when you have an R&D team, what skill set is on the R&D team? Are they more, it starts with math, applied math is physics, applied physics is chemistry. Are they more chemist, or is applied chemistry is biology? Are they coming at it more biology? How do you make something that doesn't get eaten by Streptococcus mutans, or is it more chemistry? Does anybody, well, let me just start with this. Does anybody have a PhD on your research team?
Well, I've got a few with PhD, so that's important. Very much the chemists come from more chemical engineering background, and they are, highly qualified. It's really difficult to find the right people in dental engineering, and we when we find the right person, we hopefully, get them across to SDI. We've got a whole mix of people in our team, very, very diverse, and it makes it ensures that we have more out of the box type products. We don't want to just continually develop improve what we've got. We've got to improve what we've got, but we've also got to develop new innovative products that really are offering dentists more innovations, and that's very important for SDI. And we also, our research scientists also work with other universities outside of SDI in Australia most of the time, working with their chemistry, their materials science departments and innovation departments, so we can incorporate what they develop into our products. And we're very passionate about getting innovation, and it must be visionary. And this is a new angle of SDI. We want to be really the leaders in the restorative market, and well, one of the leaders. And this is how we will get there.
You know, I call my show Dentistry Uncensored. I just call it like it is, but I want to tell my American homies, I want to, you know, when you go to American dental manufacturing companies in the $50 to $100 million range, none of them have a PhD, none of them have a research center, but they have a call center. They'll have like 50 people just dialing for dollars, because that's what you got to realize. That's what America does best, sales and marketing. And then you go to companies in Switzerland or Sweden or Australia, they don't have a call center dialing for dollars and some motivational speaker. They have PhDs doing research. And then you go to China, and I've been there and lectured at their conferences, and China's obsessed with making it so cheap that everyone will buy it. But when I go to China and I go to India, I say, well, just name one brand that's made in China or India that everybody in Europe or America would recognize, and there are none. So I always tell everybody in China and India, quit focusing on cheap and get a brand for yourself. Then I tell everybody in Europe, you need a marketing department. And talking to my homies here in America, you need PhDs. I mean, she not only has PhDs, she knows her chemical engineering background. I mean, my gosh, all three of those camps need to learn from each other, you know. You know, America is number one in sales and marketing. We could sell snow to an Eskimo, and that's probably why I keep seeing polar bear. I love these companies that can attract and retain PhDs to sit there and do genuine fundamental research of how to innovate products that are better. I want to ask you another thing. Healthcare, when you look around the globe, it seems like the two most mismanaged institutions are always going to be healthcare and government. I mean, you got your MBA, I got my MBA. Dentists, so many of them struggle with running their business. Would you recommend that a dentist listening to you right now from Sydney to Kathmandu go back to school and get their MBA?
Oh, I think having the MBA, it just opens your world about not just what you're focused on, it's about how you and what you're focused on affects the rest of businesses. Absolutely. I think an MBA is a fabulous achievement, and you know, it just gives you extra skills, and I think having an MBA is a great thing, for sure. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. And when I even in Sydney, whenever I go visit my brother Paul. By the way, my mom and my sister are flying. I'm having dinner with them tomorrow night. Then they're getting on an airplane flying to Sydney to go see my brother Paul. And you know, whenever I sit down with the dentist, I mean, I'll say like, well, you know, phones are important. How many incoming calls did you have last month? They don't know. How many went to voicemail? I don't know. You know, what was your patient cost of acquisition to get a new patient? They don't know. They just don't know anything about their business. And I love them for it. In fact, you know, the neatest compliment my four boys give me about my career? They always told me, they say, I don't know what it is, but man, dentists are the coolest people. I mean, they always talk about how dang cool dentists are. And so I love the fact that they just totally love their art, and that they donated 8 years of their life to go to school to fix people, get them out of pain, restore their health. But man, they just don't wear the business hats well. In fact, when I went to MBA school, that was when I bought my first laptop. It was 98, and it was 2 years, and I took notes. And then when I was done, I lectured out those notes as they applied to a dental office, called it the 30-day dental MBA. It's free on YouTube. It's free on iTunes. But sitting where you are, doing business with dentists in 100 countries, how does the dental industry look to you?
That's a good question. I think generally, I mean, for sure, the American dentists are the best probably at marketing themselves, but I think it just depends on the country and how developed they are. But, I think dentists, generally will do procedures similarly around the world. And I think there's still lots of opportunity, as you say, for marketing themselves better because generally they're a little bit conservative. But I think, as you say, having an MBA would really help. I think that's an important goal to get. Yes, absolutely. But generally around the world, it's a similar, very similar, just because of the procedures being quite similar.
In the United States, in the year 1900, healthcare was 1% of the GDP. By 2000, it was 14.7%. Now it's 2019, and healthcare is 17% of the GDP. 5% of it is dentistry. As these countries get richer and richer and richer, don't you think they're going to bid up the price and the value of saving their teeth?
Oh, for sure. In fact, since I've been at SCI, that we have, because we sell to a lot of the South American, Asian, Middle Eastern markets. I mean, the middle class is getting stronger and stronger, and they're investing in their health. I mean, they want exactly what Australians and Americans want, and I think the world is changing, and it's really important for everybody to have stronger teeth so they'll last longer. And I'm saying the person, not just the teeth.
If you're American and you're listening to this from the United States, when you go visit Australia, I just want to let you know you're going to be very disappointed. They actually don't have Foster's beer at every bar in America. When you're an American, you just know that you only drink Foster's beer down under. And then when you get there and you go to a bar, first bar I went to and asked for a Foster's, they didn't even have it. And he instantly knew I was American, just instantly. But
gotta have fun. That's good.
So what lessons, stirring the pot around the world, what lessons have you learned from doing business around the world that you think the Australian dentists should undergo more? I mean, I've seen it really change down there. I mean, I've been going down there for 30 years, about every 5 years. And I mean, I remember when I got down there the first time, there was like no business acumen, and it wasn't competitive at all. Everybody was booked up 3 or 4 weeks in advance in the early 90s. And then they started adding dental schools. Then they started letting in dentists that were educated in other countries. And now there are no publicly traded dental service organizations in the United States, but you have 2 in Australia, 1-300 Dentist or 1-300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles. Then there's one in Singapore, Q&M. Why do you think that 2 of the only 3 publicly traded dental services organizations in the world are in Australia?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess I don't look at the DSOs like that. Yes, why are they in Australia? I actually don't know. I mean, Australian companies are much, much smaller than the American companies, although the 2 DSOs you've referred to are quite large. I don't know how the capital structures work in America, but I guess it was the owner's decision to take these companies public, and we probably allow smaller public companies here in Australia. And I honestly don't know that answer.
Well, nobody could go public in dentistry in the United States. Wall Street wouldn't touch them in the 10-foot pole because you had Orthodontic Centers of America that did an IPO on the New York Stock Exchange, went to $1 billion valuation, and then imploded. There was a dozen on NASDAQ. And I have Wall Street analysts calling me all the time. There's a lot of DSOs that would like to do an IPO, and they're looking at the numbers, and they just don't look like something they want to get. I think there's no appetite for it in the United States. But 1300smiles.com.au. I had him on the podcast. His name is Daryl Holmes. He was show 850, an amazing man. Another one was Alex Abrams with Pacific Smiles Group. And then the guy who's going to be the biggest player is Raymond Ang with Q&M out of Singapore, because they are racing across China. And I mean, China has 1,300,000,000 people. I mean, if you're going to get 1% of the market, you should aim for China and not Kathmandu, Nepal. What do you? So are you following Q&M and Raymond Ang and how they're rolling out across Asia?
I'm looking at them a bit, but the 1-300 Smiles and Pacific Smiles are highly successful, and their CEOs have done a fantastic job. It's certainly, I think, the way things are happening all around the world, and the US market for sure has been leading the way. But I didn't realize none of them were listed. So not one. It's nice to have some transparency on what they do.
Yeah, I want to talk about another country. I don't know if you're how familiar you are with the United Kingdom, but when I lectured there first time in 1990, every dentist was with the NIH system, and they hated it, and every year they'd lower their fees, but every time the earth goes around the sun, inflation raises all your costs, and then the NIH would lower the fee, and now 32 years later, going to the United Kingdom, there's about 5,000 dentists that have walked away from the NIH system. And now you have the chain My Dentist with 800 dental offices. But you've seen a lot of changes in the UK dental market in your career. What do you think of that market?
Well, I mean, the UK dental market, one thing I love about that, they all speak English compared to many of the other countries we speak to, like the US and Canada. So, yes, there's been a lot of changes there. There's, several big groups, and I would imagine that, I don't even know the percentage, but I would imagine maybe that their percentage of DSOs over there is probably higher than the US, because there's quite a lot of dentists that are involved in that type of practice. And, it's being very much a changing market, and that's a good market, but SDI has been there for a long time, and we've got a team on the road, a fabulous team on the road there, and changes. Yes, I mean, the thing is, it's really interesting in countries like Germany. I don't think there's any DSO type businesses. I don't know if the UK follows the US market in this way, or they've just seen opportunities, but their healthcare system, it's really set up for this type of business. So. Interesting.
You know what I love the most? You know what I love the most about the German dental market is America, 50 states, every one of them has an annual state meeting. The meeting market is so fragmented in the United States, but Europe pretty much just has one big bad meeting every other year in Cologne, Germany. It's the biggest dental meeting in the world. Over 110,000 dentists show up from every country on earth. But what I love the most about the Germans is if the Germans have a question with the product, they want to talk to the owner like you. And you go to the Cologne meeting, and there's like no lectures. It's just all the companies with the booth, and all the German dentists want to talk to guys because they know, look, you own the company. You're the one that hired PhDs. You're the one making this product. You would be the best. But the Americans are so bizarre, and they're like, oh, I don't want to listen to that guy. She's selling something. It's like, what? Are you a volunteer dentist? What, do you do free dentistry on people all day? You sell dentistry. I just love the culture where they want to know, the German wants to know the face, who owns this company. They want to meet that person. They drink beer right at the convention floor. In America, they probably, call in the fire department if someone, drank a beer. I mean, it's just a more laid back, trusting culture. And I learn more, like when I visited SDI, I mean, you guys gave us a 3-hour tour, and then you took us to lunch and paid. I mean, I felt like I learned everything about your company, and America needs to be more like that. They need to stop listening to these so-called experts who are career lecturers, who are experts on 50 different products. Hell, it's hard for you to be an expert just on what SDI makes. So how do you go listen to a speaker who's an expert on 20 different companies' products? Do you even buy into that?
Unfortunately, I never get a chance to go and listen to many of the speakers, but I must say I loved working that IDS booth and seeing everybody. I didn't even get a chance to walk around any of the halls because I just see so many customers, and I must say I've loved it. And I know several of my counterparts in the other companies did exactly the same. And How can we all be experts? We can't.
Yeah, and what does it say about you? You know, I always believe people project, like whatever they're projecting on, society. They're probably having internal issues with that, and if you can't trust the owner of a company and you're a dentist and you use their products and you don't want to press the flesh and meet and talk, then I just think there's something seriously bizarre with you. I mean, I would much rather talk to the companies and see their facilities. Also on the facilities, I want to tell you this. I better be careful what I say. I better measure my words. But I mean, you pull up to a dental company. Is it clean? When you walk in there, are you greeted? I don't like making appointments. I like to see if the CEO is available. Hey, can I speak to the CEO? He's not here. Well, when will he be back? Oh, we don't know. Well, what is even going on here? I mean, it's dirty. They're not available. They don't know what's going on. And then you walk into another company and you can just tell it's a class act from A to Z. I mean, that's how one of the greatest stock investors, Peter Lynch, if you read his book, Beating the Street, that's what he did. All the brokers in Manhattan would sit there in their cubicles, all going over the same 10 Qs and the same 10 Ks, and they were all analyzing the data. And what he'd do every Monday morning, he'd jump in his car and he'd have a 5-day route trip, and he would just go physically drive by and stop in on those companies. And he had a little checklist of, was it clean? Was it neat? Could I meet with the CEO? Were they passionate? Did they like talking to their customers? And that's about what he based his entire investment strategy on. And he knocked it out of the ballpark for decade after decade after decade.
Right. Interesting. That's interesting. I must read his book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I must say, I love meeting all the customers. It's so important to me because it's the way we learn. And I actually miss not having the ideas. It's a big build up to it. And any dental meeting, actually, I love seeing the dentists. So it's good to hear from everybody. But I agree, you must be passionate because that's what drives the business.
Well, it's
Absolutely.
funny. Even when I go, any vacation I go on, if there's not even a dental manufacturing company, I still would rather go. I just cold call on dental offices. And I post a lot of pictures on Dental Town. We got a forum called International. And anytime I go to a country, I always take a lot of pictures. But I've learned so much. I mean, I remember in Somalia, just walked in there and met the dentist. And I mean, it's just so great to meet dentists all around the world. They're really cool people. So I'm going to end on what are you most passionate about now?
I think for SDI, I'm most passionate about what our vision is, and we must be an innovative company and we must be visionary because it's so important that we keep driving innovation for the dental office, for the dentists to produce for their patients. Advanced products, and we must be unique, and we must have differentiated products, and that means real investment now because you don't just come up with a product and develop it tomorrow. It takes years of development. Some of our products take years, and I want the dental offices to be extremely innovative in the composite, glass ionomer, and tooth whitening markets, and that's where our team's passionate about, and that's what we're focused on for the future. We can't be everything. We certainly, as a company, like you say, you can't do everything. We can't be experts at everything. We want to be experts in a few categories, and that's what SDI is about: composites, glass ionomers, and tooth whitening. And that's my passion for SDI for the future. Very exciting future we have.
Can I add one wish list to that? The American Dental Association, you said like listening to your customers. I've been a customer of yours for a long time. They just added their 10th specialty, dental anesthesiology. But what concerns me is I'm in Phoenix, and a lot of people retire here, and 4.5% of Americans will finish out their life in a nursing home. And the average, I think geriatric dentistry should be a specialty. And when you go in there, it's because you have cognitive problems. You have dementia, Alzheimer's, rheumatism. There's a reason you're in a nursing home, and usually the skill set of brushing and flossing is not that good. So many people are missing their teeth that they just serve soft stuff like macaroni and cheese and pumpkin pie and cottage, just a bunch of mushy carbohydrates. And the average person in a senior citizen home is getting 1 root surface cavity a month. So in her first year, she gets 12 cavities, and we just need to find products for that. I don't know what it's going to be. If it's going to be a mouthwash, if it's going to be, you're going to build, but geriatric dentistry is, it's the in the United States, the fastest growing demographic population, women over 100. Second fastest, women over 90. I mean, they're just living and living and living, and they outlive all of our dentistry.
Do you know what? I totally agree with you, Howard. And for us, the Riva Star, the silver diamine fluoride, is the perfect product for that procedure. Just paint it on, and you can just paint that on every 6 months. They don't need cavities. They don't need restoratives done. Just paint that on. It's for children and it's for geriatric, for that whole spectrum of age, for everybody. And you don't need to do restorative dentistry on those types of patients again. I mean, it's so difficult for them to brush their teeth and things like that, so that decay comes quickly. Riva Star silver diamine fluoride is the perfect product for it.
Well, you need to find a rocking hot geriatric dentist to come on my podcast and talk about that and make an online CE course about that, because that is a huge issue in the United States. And dentists are thinking about, well, in order to do all that dentistry, I need to buy a mobile dental clinic for a couple $100,000 and all this stuff like that. But how to walk into a nursing home and do what you just said is not common knowledge.
Okay, that's good. I like that idea. Yes, absolutely. Because this is, everyone's living a lot longer.
Yeah, and it's just really scary if you're a woman, because you go in those nursing homes, there's 100 women and just 1 man. And you can, when you see the actuarial tables that American women outlive men by 5 years, it never becomes more apparent until you go into a nursing home. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. But yeah, it is amazing. I go into a lot of nursing homes in Arizona, and it's really a grim dental situation. And I'm not aware of hardly anybody going in there and doing what you just said. So that would be amazing information.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, is geriatric dentistry? Is anybody do that in Australia? Is there one person who specializes in geriatric dentistry?
I'm not aware, and I will find out. I'm not aware, but there must be, and I'm sure in the US there will be people that we can talk to as well.
And so, is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that I wasn't smart enough to bring up, or something you wanted to talk about?
No, absolutely not. Thank you, Howard. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and I really appreciate your interest in SDI and, your passion for dentistry. It goes both ways, and I think it's really exciting. I mean, just so you know, today's Tuesday for me, and you've started my day off well. It's Tuesday morning, and I feel motivated for the whole day now. So thank you very much.
Well, you got your whole family and company is a class act. Thanks so much for showing me and my boys such a great time. And it was a true honor for you to come on the show today and talk to my homies. Thank you so much for coming on.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for asking me.